So we are talking about the second to last episode of season 2 of Doom Patrol, where we see two fathers interacting with their daughter. We see Larry and Jane take a trip down to the well. Cyborg and Rita are on a murder case, and time is up for Dorothy. We're talking about that and much more. Season 2, Episode 8 of Doom Patrol was titled Dad Patrol. Determined to prove her wealth in the underground, Jane brings Larry to rural Arkansas to help her retrieve an invaluable item. Niles organizes a special day for Dorothy, who hides a personal development from her declining father. Cliff gives father-daughter bonding with Clara his best shot, while Rita embraces her superhero status as the Beekeeper, and Vic is forced to confront the real Roni. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with my weekly recap, breakdown, and review of the latest episode of Doom Patrol titled Dad Patrol. A very interesting character-driven episode. We didn't get any outrageous, crazy villains or a villain of the week, but we got more of quieter moments. We have two parallel stories of how fathers are interacting with their daughters. And time is up for Dorothy. We're going to break it all down in this spoiler discussion. But as you can see on the screen now, make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss any of that new content. Give this video a thumbs up, helps out the channel, but I also really appreciate it. And last but not least, if and when you've seen this latest episode of Doom Patrol, let me know where you guys are at. You know, this is the second to last episode before we get our season finale. Again, this season was supposed to be 10 episodes, but due to COVID, the 10th episode was canceled. So we're ending on an episode 9. So I'd imagine it might be a cliffhanger, but let me know where you guys are at with this season so far. What do you think will happen in the finale? Let's have some fun discussions in the comments below. So before I get into the recap, overall thoughts, this is a solid episode. Again, I don't know if it's me mentally just knowing in the back of my head that there were supposed to be 10 episodes and we're only getting 9, so I felt like the season just kind of feels like it's an asterisk on it, like we're not getting a full developed season. But nevertheless, I think that this episode really does focuses on, you know, the father, the parallels of the father, Cliff and Niles. One father saying goodbye, potentially goodbye to his daughter, and the other father is kind of embracing his daughter for the first time ever. So a very interesting parallel there. I'm still on the fence about how this show handles Rita and Larry. I feel like they just sometimes just give them, like, they attach them to people that have more interesting storylines, and particularly with like Larry this episode, you know, going with Jane, like he doesn't really have much to do, so let's give him a character to kind of pair with. Same goes with Rita, you know, Cyborg's having everything going on with Roni, so let's pair him up with them. So I feel like they still are the weakest characters in the show. I love the actors that play Rita, that play Larry, but I feel like their storylines are kind of put on the back burner. They're kind of underdeveloped. They're very underwhelming for me personally, but we'll get into that later on. But let's start off with this recap here. So it starts off in 1954 in Arkansas, where we see a young Jane and her abusive father. There's, you know, he's saying, you know, you're not doing what daddy says and all this stuff. And then we see this form of punishment where he puts, you know, young Kay in this bucket and puts her down the well. I mean, you can only imagine what that can do to a young girl at that age, and just the traumatizing type of things that she goes through, which again explains the reason why she has these personalities and why she is the way she is just because of her father. So we open the episode there, but we also get a sad moment with her only and best friend at that time before the personalities. We see her stuffed animal, Harry, unfortunately gets dropped into the well, and that's a pretty big moment towards the end of this episode. But again, the episode starts off in a really sad place, seeing, you know, that abusive nature of her father. But as we kind of move forward, we see, we enter the underground where we see Jane trying to figure out what's going on. Again, we have, you know, the flaming character, baby doll, some other characters that have gone, you know, to the well, and as Miranda puts it, they're just moving on. But we all know Jane is kind of more attentive when it comes to that word moving on, and we'll talk about Miranda and how everything played out in this episode. But you know, this is the point where Jane's like, I have to prove my worth towards Kay and towards everyone in the underground. I'm going to take it upon myself to go to Arkansas, to go into the well and retrieve Harry, and maybe, you know, have, you know, Kay feel more better, because right now Miranda's saying that Kay is kind of moving on. She's getting better, but again, as we see in this episode, Jane doesn't want to get faded away. She doesn't want to be forgotten, so we'll talk about that here in a bit. But as we kind of get into more of the heart and the meat of this episode, episode, again, is called Father, or called Dad Patrol, I should say, where we're seeing Cliff, where we're seeing Niles interact with Dorothy. We're seeing Cliff interact with Clara, and we're seeing two different stories as far as how one dad is saying goodbye to his daughter potentially, and another dad is embracing his daughter for the first time. So with Cliff, we see him interacting with Clara as he's showing her doom matter. We see that she's getting married, and the reaction with Cliff when she's telling him this news is he doesn't know how to react to it. It's not like in a bad way, but he just hasn't had this interaction with his daughter before. So it's kind of almost kid-like, where he's like, oh, you're getting married? That's cool. You want to see my room? Hey, you want to see my toy set? Hey, you want to see where I eat, where I sleep, and all this stuff. So he's and she kind of like, this doesn't feel like a natural interaction between a daughter telling her dad that she's pregnant, number one, having a boy that we find out in this episode, and she's also getting married. So very interesting interaction there. But as the episode goes on, we see them kind of embracing each other a little bit more. But within this particular storyline, I'll just kind of give you guys my thoughts on the Cliff and Clara stuff. We see Clara tells Cliff about Mel, her partner, as he's cooking her breakfast, and accidentally puts the finger that he got in Michigan. He accidentally cooks. I thought that was so gross, because he's cooking a finger around the food that she ate. I don't know. That just kind of grossed me out personally. I know it's fake. It's fictional, but that just kind of freaked me out. But either way, we find out that it's a boy. They sit down, and one of the biggest things I loved about this episode with Cliff is, again, the last two seasons, and particularly this season, he's wanting to meet his daughter. He wants to be in her life, and we get a really quiet and good moment between those two as they're saying their goodbyes. He, fixes her car, gives her oil change, fixes the windshield wipers, all this good stuff. Trying to be a dad, right? Trying to make up for the lost time. But she invites him to the wedding, which I thought was really nice, because, again, this whole last two seasons, who knows where the wedding's going to go, if it's going to take place, depending on what happens with Dorothy and the candle maker. But if we get that scene with him at the wedding, I think that's going to be really pivotal for that character, and hopefully wraps up that particular arc of him kind of having that regret of not being in his daughter's life and everything that went on with his past, his family, with the accident. So that would be really nice. I thought it was a really quiet, a really good sentimental moment between those two, but really good moment to see Cliff embracing his daughter, and his daughter embracing him for the first time. So really good moment there. But we have another father and dad, a father and daughter relationship that doesn't play out the same way, unfortunately, with Niles and Dorothy, and we'll get to that here in a bit. But we see a scene very early on in the episode with Kipling and him in the classic bunny tour. I don't know what the bunny character was, but the bunny tells the group that there's a catastrophic event that's going to take place, and we all know that catastrophic event is involving Dorothy. It involves the candle maker and a world-ending threat potentially. So we see the conversation between Niles and Kipling at the gas station. I just love when the show just does just wacky stuff. Like, he gets a phone call, and you would think it would be from a cell phone, but no, it's a candy bar. He's talking into two candy, or it looks like Reese Pieces type of candy chocolate, and has a conversation about Dorothy, and her days are being numbered. That is, the time is now to come to in Dorothy and in the candle maker, because he is right around the corner, and he is not a friendly individual. So as we kind of get into the Cliff, or get into the Larry storyline, we get the flashback with Larry back to 1961. We see him and his son talking about his preparation for going to a space mission, which again kind of points towards where I think things are headed for Larry. Maybe not this season, but maybe in future seasons. And this was really kind of touched upon in my review a couple weeks ago when we got Muskoff and the people from space. I think that Larry's going to go to space. I don't know if it's going to be a permanent thing, if it's going to be a one-episode thing, but I think they're really alluding to the negative spirit taking him to space to maybe find his kind, to find more about, this being and this negative cosmic type of science or magic, whatever you want to call it. But I think that that's really kind of pointing towards Larry inevitably going into space. But we see Larry, he gets the invitation to go with Jane. And this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the episode, where Larry, and we'll get to Rita here in a bit, but I feel like Larry is kind of in a rut in this season. Like, again, his whole storyline these last two seasons have been about the past, reflecting on his past mistakes, his family, not interacting with his son, his daughter, or his wife and all that. So it's been kind of underwhelming for me. I know a lot of you all, I love Larry. I love the character and the actor, but I just feel like him and Rita have the weakest subplots for me personally. So I feel like this episode really highlighted that, where it's just like, we don't know what to do with Larry right now, his whole relationship with his family. So let's pair him up with Jane, because she has a lot more to do. I think Jane, Niles, and Dorothy this season in particular has gotten the most backstory, has gotten the most to do. So I think like this show is just like, hey, Larry, let's go ahead and partner him up with Jane. So we see that they take a trip down to Arkansas as we see them on their walk to Arkansas as they have a conversation. They're talking about, Dorothy or, Jane doesn't want to be forgotten. She doesn't want to be an afterthought once Kay maybe moves on and is free of her trauma. And in comparison, Larry kind of feels the same way. He doesn't want to be forgotten with his family and his legacy that he left with his family. So again, I don't know what they're going to do with Larry. Are they going to make amends with him and his son Paul? They're going to make amends to his grandson being shot. I don't know where that's going, but to me, the biggest thing was obviously Jane and her going to the well. So as we kind of get with that, Jane does go to the farm. She inevitably goes down the drain. And we see Jane does find Harry, but there is a note there. And we'll talk about that here in a bit in regards to how the episode wraps up. But she finds a note with Harry attached to it. So we'll leave that towards the end. But as we kind of go with Dorothy and Niles, they're kind of plot in this episode. They're on a road trip. They go to the gas station. Dorothy is becoming a woman. She has her period. She has an interaction with the lady at the gas station. In the meantime, we see Niles is making what he calls a Dorothy day, and she wants to go to the fair. We see how that plays out. She wins a teddy bear for Jane, but in the midst of that, she's seeing these kind of visions of her mom throughout the fair, seeing her mom pop up with the shoes in preparation of her being ready for, as she calls it, the time has come. As we see, Dorothy kind of going into one of these kind of carnival kind of fun houses, we see Niles, and this is something I've been really kind of complaining about this season, where we knew from the very first episode that Niles is dying, but we really haven't gotten hints of that at all into this episode. For me, let me know in the comments if there's been other hints, but we see him coughing continuously throughout this episode. He's coughing up blood, so that's alluding to his immortality. His days are being numbered himself. So that whole Dr. Time and all this stuff, they haven't figured out how to help Niles. So I don't know if this season, if Niles is going to die come season finale, because they have the group, the Doom Patrol, has yet to really be together as a group. I imagine we'll get them as a group next week, but I don't know, guys. I think Niles is going to die because they have literally done nothing to help him, his immortality. So we'll see where that plays out. But as we see Dorothy in this kind of fun house, she has this vision with her mom. Her mom puts on her little coat and give her the weapon, and we see the candle maker chases her and tells her, "You don't have a choice in this matter. I'm coming regardless if you want me to or not." I don't know what the ancestors of the cave woman and Dorothy's family, her heritage, what the agreement was, where it's just like once she becomes a woman, she's going to destroy the world due to how the people treated her mom, or if it's just like a blood oath, if she's just inevitably a villain. Her parents have a villainous side to them. So it'll be really interesting to find more about the end of days with the candle maker. Why do they want to end the days? Why is this vision been given to her? Why does she have to destroy the world? So I hope that we dive into that more, because they really haven't dove into that at all this season. Again, I assume it's just a matter of how the cave woman was perceived, that she was neglected, she was treated badly from humanity. So it's just like, hey, I'm going to have this child and she's going to be Doomsday. So maybe that's where it is at, but hopefully they get into it next week. But as we kind of see all that kind of play out, again, we're seeing this relationship between Niles and his daughter, trying to make up for lost time, his own self, very similar to Cliff and his daughter. But at the same time, he's kind of saying his goodbyes to her because he knows his days are numbered, but also there's an inevitable thing with Dorothy where if it's not now, it's later, as Kipley said in this episode, that she has to go. She has to be taken out because of her connection to this candle maker. So we'll talk about the last ending with them too. But going into what's going on with Rita and Cyborg, their storyline was just kind of... The stuff with Cyborg this season has been really kind of up and down for me. I like that they gave him a love interest with Roni, and we don't really get anything with his father. We get the one scene with his dad, but I thought that they kind of pushed that storyline under the rug, where it's just like the last time we saw them talking, he almost killed his dad, but we got none of that this season. So it was cool to see him interact with someone else, but I just felt like everything with Roni was just, especially in this episode, Ronnie's now a murderer. When we knew she had a past, they alluded to that very early in the season, but she kills the guy that gave her the technology. We get the... Let me know if I'm just overplaying this, but the scene where Vic is talking to that police officer and he's just like, hey, you white male cop, I don't know why you're so angry. like, I don't know, that line just felt like it was just kind of, I get what they were going for. Again, we know what's going on in society now, but I thought that line felt very unnatural and very forced when he said that to the police officer. But either way, we get, the stuff with Rita, which again, I don't feel like this show has really handled Rita's storyline that well, where she's kind of letting go of her mom and everything that happened to her as a young age. But we get one of the more funny moments in this episode, because again, this is a really heavy drama episode where we see Rita and Cyborg, or should I say in this case, the Beekeeper and Cyborg, as we kind of get this kind of second movie montage involving Cyborg. We got one earlier with Cliff and Steel and Cyborg, or Steel and Stone, as we got with the kind of the Lethal Weapon style homage. But this particular homage was due to or paying respects to the Avatar, or the Avengers, which is a Great Britain show that was a spy show that took place between like 1961 and 1969. So that was kind of a funny moment, and it was cool to kind of see them have that moment there. But as we kind of wrap up this storyline, Vic has a conversation with Roni at the diner. She says, "This is who I am. I thank you for spending this little moment that we had together, but I'm going to continue to do," which I guess is just killing people, and maybe killing the people that did her wrong and put this technology in her. We really don't dive into that, but they have a fist fight, and we see that Roni is definitely capable of going toe-to-toe with Cyborg. But, as she's walking out the diner, Rita doesn't do anything. She just lets her walk right past her, which again, I feel like Rita and Larry, I don't like the way the show handles their characters. I just feel like they're afterthoughts. I feel like last week when we saw Rita save that guy in the alley, the show it was 2 seconds. She saved the guy, and it would have been nice to see the guy say, "Hey, thank you so much. You're my new favorite superhero." But they just come and go. Like, I don't know what. I just feel like the Rita stuff is very, very underwhelming for me personally. But we'll see if Roni and Vic becomes another storyline into the finale or into next season, because apparently, I read an article yesterday. They're shooting season 3 and 4 back to back, so we'll see if Roni comes back up in further seasons. But as we kind of wrap up the episode, going back to what we get with Jane and Miranda, she finds a letter. The letter says that she is going to protect her no matter what. And Jane's like, "Okay, I believe you now. I believe you can take care of Kay." And as we all kind of expected, Miranda can't be trusted. She pushes Jane into the well, and we see Baby Doll. We see the other characters that have been killed off by Miranda. So a lot of you all have been speculating that Miranda wants to take out all the personalities and be the one persona to protect Kay. So is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Who knows? We'll see if that becomes something that we can look forward to in the finale or in future seasons. But as we wrap up the episode, we see Niles runs into Kipley once again. He tells her he has to finish things. We see him fall out of the chair. We see that the candle maker is kind of upon everyone. We see things melting, and we see that people screaming and yelling at the carnival, and end of credits. So I assume the end of days are near. As I kind of wrap up this review, this particular portion of the video here, I assume the Doom Patrol is going to come together and either defend Dorothy, or have to take out Dorothy, or more importantly, fight the candle maker. So we'll see how all that plays out in next week's season finale. Again, I like this episode because it wasn't, it wasn't the normal crazy stuff that we're used to, which I love, but we get more of those quieter moments. But I still feel like Rita, Cyborg, and Larry have had 3 of the more kind of inconsistent storylines this season, haven't really been that developed, and things like the Roni, this episode just felt rushed. Rita's the Beekeeper. What are you doing, Rita? Like, what's really her end goal in this season? Larry, do you want to be a part of the family? Do you not want to be a part of the family? That stuff is kind of the weaker stuff of this season, as it was for last season for me personally, and I was hoping that they got more to do. And I don't know, maybe this season just not having a central villain. I know that the Candlemaker was the overarching villain, but all this stuff at the beginning of the season with the Dr. Time, the Jack the Ripper character, all that stuff, it just feels like I miss Mr. Nobody. That's what it really boils down to. I feel like that was such a rich and more fleshed out character than what we gotten with the Candlemaker, which we really haven't gotten that much. So I still love these characters. I hope they stick to landing for next week. I've been watching the Umbrella Academy, which has some similarities to Doom Patrol, and I love season 2 of that. Check out my review for that. But hopefully season 2 episode 9 of Doom Patrol will end on a happy, good note leading into these future seasons. But let me know what you all thought about this episode, your pros, your cons, and what do you hope to see in the finale. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss any of my new content. Again, check out my spoiler-free review for the other Umbrella Academy, which is available now. I will be releasing my spoiler review tomorrow. There's a watch-along that I have scheduled this Saturday for Guardians of the Galaxy, and many more things coming pretty soon. So I hope you all enjoy that content. Hope you are all having a great week. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video.